Hey, I'm T,
And I'm breandax.
and we're listening to some music today.
Yeah.
So have you heard of a band called the Beths?
No, I have not. But going off the back of our last couple of listens, I'm guessing this is also a band with multiple people and not a person called Beth.
It's kind of both. So not only are the Beths multiple people, but there is a Beth inside of the Beths.
Okay. Is the connection of the band name related to band member Beth?
I would think so. Maybe there's like a double meaning there.
Fact check that.
We'll have to fact check that.
Let us know in the comments.
Let us know the results of your Wikipedia search. So I wanted to show you the Beths. The Beths are a kind of indie rock band hailing out of New Zealand.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and they've been going for a couple of years now. They've released a couple of albums. This is their most recent album as of time of recording, but I believe there's another one on the way, and there is also a world tour right around the corner, which is really exciting because these guys were a lot smaller, probably a couple years ago. But if you have a look at commentary on this latest album, Expert in a Dying Field, you've got big names like our very own Phoebe Bridgers. And I say very own because she's beloved, and keep an eye on the channel.
As like beloved in our hearts. We're not from the same country as Phoebe.
Exactly.
Nor are we at... Phoebe doesn't know us. We know Phoebe. Phoebe doesn't know us.
We've seen Phoebe. She probably didn't see us.
If you'd like to know us, Phoebe, you're very welcome to call us.
Open invitation.
Exactly.
So yeah, there was a, would you call it a foreword? I don't know. There's like a tagline in the promotional material for the album, like Phoebe's in love with the Beths.
Oh, like a testimonial?
Yeah.
For like, it's like, I don't know, New York Times, 5 stars.
Yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
that, but like Phoebe Bridgers, 5 stars.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what you think. It's a little bit of a departure from the last couple of records that we've listened to.
Okay.
But I think it's overall a good time. I'm a fan myself. So this is another case of me showing you something, and hopefully we have a good time with this one.
Let's do it.
All right. First track is Expert in a Dying Field, and that's also the name of the album.
Can we erase our history? Is it as easy as this? And
I love it so
can
much.
close the door on us, but the room still exists. You can't let go, you can't stop, can't rewind. Love is learned over time.
Such a poetic lyric.
Oh, an expert in a dying field.
What'd you think?
I really like it. That initial reaction when we started and we got the first like vowel-based sound blends coming out. At first I was like, damn, diction, clarity, articulation.
Yep.
In my opinion, the Kiwi accent is to an Aussie accent as like a Canadian accent is to a like a US accent. Same, but better. And as an Australian, maybe that's controversial because I don't know, people get very competitive over these things, but I really like the Kiwi accent. And the more Kiwi, like the more South Island you go, like I think it's just really, really endearing. Anyway, so that was just me getting really chuffed with like, woo. I love it.
I think it's a very warm and friendly accent.
Yeah. I've recently been going down like a 90s rabbit hole. A couple of weeks ago, my partner was watching 10 Things I Hate About You. And then it was like classic, like indie rock from that era.
That's the movie for it, yeah.
And then like what the band that does most of the soundtrack for that movie is Letters to Cleo. And then I went, that just days, and this was just like,
yes, it does reminisce back to the 90s, back to the early 2000s.
Yeah,
kind of indie rock kind of
when you're on the
aesthetic.
top of a very expensive private school's castle, playing songs.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway.
for me, this is a little bit less private school, but it is of that era.
Yes, correct.
It's such a great introduction to the album. You get the vibe of what the Beths are about, kind of. It's a very earnest, very playful, but also really poetic, masterfully written, in my opinion, like lyrically at least, and also it's such a pleasant song. The opening line, I don't know if it's the opening line or one of the first lines, "You can close the door on us, but the room still exists." That's such like a hard hitting line. Being an expert in a dying field, like it's about love, the concept. So the moment you get good at it, it's no longer a relevant field, and the thing that you've been pouring so much time and effort into is so different to what it started as. You may as well be a novice again. And just coupled with the very articulate, very clean, but easy to listen to vocals, I think it's a great package.
I thought that the balancing just really helped to hear a lot of the lyricism coming through. So first I was like, whoever produced this album, I mean, I know nothing about sound engineering and mastering and stuff. Like, this is some well-balanced stuff. The clarity as well. And there was just so much space. And with that space, again, being able to like clearly hear each component, whether it was an instrument or whether it was the lead vocalist or the backup vocalist as well. I really liked how I don't know if it's a pre-chorus or a chorus, you kind of like, you know, because of the rock vibes, it's building up throughout the end of the verse, and then you might be expecting a big drop, and then you get thicker with a lot of like guitars and drums and stuff like that, but they actually like pull back. And for me, that gave a lot of like levity in the song and introspection, and again focus on the lyrics, and like, oh, you know, and it just created that, it was just like a like vacuum space, and then it's like, and that was really cool, and it gave me a lot of sense of, again, anticipation. I'm like, oh, I really want to hear like where we're going to go on the next track.
And it maintains like a playful vibe the whole way through. I think it's such a great titular first track for the album.
For sure.
Shall we move on to
Knees Deep?
Let's do it.
Hey.
Watching light through water. I'm envious, why pretend I'm not? The shame, I wish that I was brave enough to dive in. Only these deep will never be brave like you.
I think that one is also such a sweet song.
Sweet is definitely one of the descriptors I would think about. Okay, so the emotions that I was feeling, especially, so in the chorus, right? Like, we're talking about, we're in a body of water. You know, it's a shame that I don't have the courage to dive in, to be brave like you.
Coming in hot and freezing completely.
Yeah, and I'm not brave enough to like dive in. But then,
Yeah, shame. I wish I could say what I've been thinking, but I've
Yes.
never have done, never will do, still only knees deep. I'll never be brave like you.
and so for me, the sweetness, like I was thinking about that, but it was making this feeling here. It was like, I think it was, like when it was just very much resonating. You're like, oh, I know that feeling. I know that tension and that hesitance, and that was kind of like the, you know, but it wasn't being, you know, the song, it's not like being very heavy and like darkly emotional. It was just like, it was just so relatable.
Yeah.
Like, oh yes, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were to go to the root of what it's trying to convey, you know, it could be like pretty toxic. So like idolizing somebody, putting yourself down, saying I'll never be brave like you, almost kind of, yeah, putting them on a pedestal. But the way that it comes through the song, it comes through a bit like puppy love to me, like a little bit. I'm idolizing you, but it's because I'm like maybe kind of crushing on you a little bit, or maybe you're a really dear friend that I admire. And I'm just kind of, you know, admiring your braveness, and meanwhile I'm putting myself down because that's what I know to do. But it's just playing off such a real dynamic that I think a lot of us have felt in real life, and it's doing it in a bit of a lighter tone where we can sit with it in a space that's, you know, not too heavy, like you mentioned, bit of driving indie rock instrumental as well. It kind of brings me back to like an American high school drama.
You know, maybe it's describing a more toxic dynamic or something like that. But I think the way that it is sung, the way that the lead singer like emotes the lyrics, combined with the way that they've, you know, composed it, like it's very upbeat. Yeah, it has that levity to it.
Yeah, it's very driving still as well.
It made me think. I didn't feel like this song was necessarily made about like a romantic love. I think it seemed like I see someone else, like I see a friend, and I admire this like courageousness of yours, and I wish that I could like tap into a bit of that for myself.
Yeah, no, I don't get the sense that it's at least self-deprecating to the point where it's making me feel a bit down. Maybe it's using some self-deprecating lyricism to just kind of compare and contrast rather than being like,
It felt more
I'm
like
so shitty.
self-aware. It was more
Yeah.
like, damn, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wish I could, but I can't, or I
Yeah.
don't at the moment, you know?
Yeah, and I kind of like the fact that it doesn't feel like we're going as deep as maybe like a 1975 or like some of the old kind of country tearing your beer kind of tracks where it's like actually really dark, like drug abuse and all of that. We're still like pretty light for all intents and purposes, but I'm still getting like such a vivid kind of picture through Liz's vocals. All right, track 3, Silence is Golden.
Then I would drive home, go to my room, knock myself out, that would be the end of it. The sound, 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 until I can't function at all.
Whew.
Ooh, Silence is Golden, isn't it?
What a cathartic song, right? I think they was so clever with a lot of the like sound elements.
Scratchy, distorted guitar, the bass wouldn't stop in certain sections, drums kept going.
Yeah, it was like, what was it? Almost at the end there, when it's like, you know what? I actually feel, because I feel like their lyricism is so beautiful.
One step
really
ahead of
kind
you.
of-
Genius is open right now.
Okay, great. Let's have a look. Yeah, the end of the last verse, until I can't function at all, and they literally like stopped for a beat, which
Yeah.
was I thought was just like so great.
And then the final chorus, vocals only, no
Vocals
backing
only.
track.
And then the first thing that I actually noticed about this like cathartic nature, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like what I'm hearing is taking me to the same place with where the lyrics were going. The beginning, the pre-chorus is like the sound, the sound, the sound, the sound. And for the first time on this album, as far as I've noticed so far, we're getting a lot of like discordant harmonies coming in. Like it was starting to clash, creating that tension, whereas everything else has been so like peppy and
Yeah.
like uplifting, right?
Yeah.
And that I thought it was like, and with the repetition of the sound, the vocals and the dynamics of the vocals was getting more intense as well with that as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can imagine like it was almost painting this white noise that's just like building and building and building, even though white noise wasn't actually being used at all.
There's a few ways that I can interpret the feeling that it's evoking. It's such a valid feeling. I feel it every day. I'm prone to stress myself. I just get such a stressful feeling from the song, but through a few different ways. Like I get vivid imagery of a really loud, bustling cityscape, construction that won't stop. You're in a social scenario, people won't stop yapping around you. You've got social pressure, like you're out kind of drinking and like you want to be a bit quieter, but everyone's kind of rambunctious. Work is really catching up to you, like maybe the hustle and bustle of being in a successful band. Like it's so many different angles, but it's all evoking the same emotion, and it kind of makes me feel like I'm in a bit of a sense of community with these other perspectives and these other feelings. Like I don't drink myself, but I can imagine if you were out and you had a bunch of social pressure to drink and you wanted to just spend time with friends, but everyone's being rambunctious. I just felt like I was given a glimpse into that world. But I could relate to it through my own experience of stress and noise and no stopping and keep going and all of that. And then at the end, like you mentioned, instruments pull back, silence is golden. It just repeats a few times and it just really hammers it in that once you get home, once you get to your quiet place, once you can stop and kind of think, you really appreciate, hey, silence sometimes really is golden, especially if you're an introvert.
And at least from a performance perspective, right? If this is ever on their set list, when they're performing live, you can totally see, right? Because everyone will know the instrumentation's about to drop off, and then you can just imagine like the crowd like jumping in and everyone just like chanting this together, and like that being a really high energy point in a performative setting.
Yeah, it's that scenario where all the introverts that have come out to the Beths show have their moment to like
the loudest that they've ever been.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. Next one is Your Side. And also, before I go on to this next one, my feeling is that Silence is Golden is going to be a bit of a transition track just because it's been such a different tempo to the first two. Well, not tempo, but arrangement to the first two in terms of instrumentation. So let's see if my assumption is right.
If this is life, then why do you have to leave? I'm working in the morning, wasted in the evening. I wanna see you, I wanna hear you say, don't cry. I'm on the next flight to be by your side, to be by your side. Don't cry, yeah, I'll drive all night to be by your side. I wanna hear you say.
I have some feels.
This song is so me. I'm in this song. Well, let's point out the obvious here. So this song is about really feeling for someone and feeling for someone to the point where you want them to come and be kind of the relief to your frustration, to your torment, to your longing. And maybe you're in a relationship with this person and maybe work takes them far away from you. Maybe they just lead a busy life. Their schedule's really busy, but you know, you just want them there, and maybe you understand why they're busy and why they're far away, but you know, it'd be nice to have them back. Fellow anxiously attached people out there, you know this feeling. You know this feeling for sure. And sometimes it's a little bit over the top. Sometimes it's not kind of realistic when when you look at, you know, someone else's experience and their schedule and how much time they can give back to you. But it sure would be nice.
Oh. Like, oh yes, it is quite an angsty longing. I didn't hear any of those lines.
So what did you hear?
It's
What did
funny.
you hear?
I'm just like, so I'm still feeling a bit emotional about it because I have recently been reunited after being long term for a period of time, and that distance was real. I mean, long distance relationships are hard. And I was, you know, they talk about like you see what you want to see. So maybe I was just seeing the imagery that was just really resonating with me. Now that I have the lyrics in front, I'm like, oh yes, okay, there is the angsty parts of it. Because the first things that I grabbed onto in the first verse, for example, was, which to me was very sweet and again, very relatable for me personally. All I could hear was like, I want to see you knocking at the door. And then it goes like dripping on the hall floor. And I'm like, yes, just like these everyday moments. And you look at your, you know, this person that you love and you're just like, I'm just so happy. Like you cherish these because they're significant, like they're a significant person to you.
Yeah.
So you treasure these moments. And so that's, I was just like, oh, yes, yeah, okay. And then of course the lyrics of the chorus, you know, I want to, I'm, don't cry. I'm jumping on the next flight. I'm going to be by your side. I'm like, yes, I feel you. And for me, I'm like, I just love all of the emotion. I'm like, this is so cathartic to sing, and I'm singing all my emotions, and it's just feeling. I'm just like, I'm expressing feelings, and they're coming out of me. And so, even though none of these songs would be like those, like it's a big shouty, belty karaoke song, I'm like, oh, I would love to just like scream this in a dark, overly air-conditioned room at karaoke. Like, yes,
I could. This is a softer recording, but I could see the melody in these lyrics. I could see them belted for sure.
And the way that the chords were like, oh, I'm like, oh yeah.
I think we both agree, and maybe for slightly different reasons, but I think we both agree it's a very vivid and it's a very sweet song. Even if I put my anxious lens on it, I still think it's a very sweet message. It's just very real for those of us who are
very real,
super
very
anxious.
relatable, very relatable in all the different interpretations, for sure.
Shall we
I
move
want
on?
to listen though.
Sure.
To I want to listen.
You want to listen to I Want to Listen, huh?
Was that a good
Well-
segue? I don't know.
Well, even if it wasn't a good segue, it's next up on the track list, so you're going to hear it anyway.
I risked my case in bed and made life to be mine.
Slowing down.
So if you wanna whisper, I swear I wanna listen.
So sweet.
Very, 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 very. And a shorter track that so far.
The instruments kind of took a little bit more of a center
I was
stage in this
just
one.
thinking that, and it was actually again with my with my brain was like I'm like, what are the lyrics? What are the lyrics? And then the penny dropped maybe about 2/3 of the way through. I'm like, oh, wait a second. You know, we've been remarking about how all of these tracks have a lot of space. What I find really helps vocals and like the clarity of vocals to come forward is where you don't have any instruments occupying the same like octave or like pitch of there. And so, you know, maybe a background vocals or your other guitars and even lead guitars just in a different like octave. And so sonically, you know, you can hear it better. But here, everything was a lot more tighter and closer to each other, which made it thicker. And it made it this very like treacly kind of like honey gooey kind of like feeling, flowy kind of feel. I know honey is not flowy, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get you. And flowy is very relevant here because I get, as a guitarist, I get surf guitar vibes from some of the effects on the guitar.
Okay, I
And
can see that.
that makes it feel flowy to me.
It's been very thick. It was very it was like with at pace kind of thing, right? And then we had this, and it was a lot of the lyrics felt like it was a lot of like almost like train of thought. It was very much like a letter directly talking to the lover. I have all these thoughts. I've got all these feelings. There's this train of thought. It's continuous. It's flowing. And then we had this rapid deceleration, like very rapid musically at the end, right? Not in a way to like create like silence. It was just like it just really slowed down. And at the same time, at least I thought the lyric was like, and if you want to slow down, I want to listen to you, something like that. And I was like,
Even if it's not the exact lyric, I don't think it's very far off the vibe of the song. I think what I get from it as well, and I've got a couple of lyrics that really stand out to me, is train of thought. You know, life's been so difficult lately. It's been so hard to keep up with. I've got a couple of flaws too. Wait a second, you're still here. Wait, don't go. Oh, you want to stay? Great. That's the kind of like feeling that I get. And there's a couple of lines, and I like the Beths lyricism as well because they're a bit of a nerdy kind of like tongue-in-cheek band too. So one of the lyrics was, the headboard strained under the weight of my memory of the day so crammed, getting low on RAM, getting high on strife. And I'm like, as a person who sometimes feels a bit like a computer with the way that I function,
yes, me too.
I felt so heard there.
I didn't know you feel that. Oh, I've actually used that analogy.
Oh yeah?
Before, yeah. So normally, like in a job setting, like if I start a new job, I'll tell people, my memory is like a colander.
Oh yeah?
Like it's like a strainer. Like I've got good processing power, but RAM, she not there. That's why I'm always writing things down because my brain's just like, brrr, but I'm not remembering stuff, and that's why you gotta save that somehow. But yeah, that's crazy.
If you overlay it in the context of a relationship, you're like, oh, wait a second, am I losing this person? Like, is my weirdness and my difficulty in keeping up with things kind of impacting them negatively? And then you're like, wait, no, it's not. It's more than that. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
The chorus is 3 lines. The chorus says, and why do you like to still try? And then the end, it's like, rather than asking the question, she's just like, so if you want to whisper, I swear I want to listen.
Oh. So why it resonates with me is I'm definitely the louder person in my relationship, and my brain, like we're very, like the way that we process things is very different, and mine is very like, "Brr," right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I've known to go on a bit of a tangent, to go on a bit of a ramble. And then you sort of become a bit self-aware, like mid-ramble, and just like, oh, How was your day? You're like, why do you put up with this? Why do you, how do you have the, like, I'm so odd and then I'm so strange. Why do you love me?
Now you have a song for that emotion.
I do. Just sometimes, yeah, my head is just in the clouds. I'm going to get this segue down pat.
I'm not even going to introduce the track. Next song.
If it went differently, we could be the finest friends. But at the scene of the crime, it's a pain in the heart. Clean the blood from your shirt.
Such a good chorus.
Come down. It's a pain in the heart. Clean the blood from your shirt. Come down to earth.
A good banger.
That was a banger,
Yeah.
but that was also pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It's a bit of whiplash for me, but it just makes it even more real. Like, we've gotten a lot of these kind of semi lovey-dovey, pretty relatable kind of depictions of longing, a relationship, admiration, etc., even outside of a relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, this is a song where we're talking about a relationship that's kind of in a bit of turmoil. And there's a bit of blaming, there's a little bit of wondering, what if things went differently? Maybe they're not broken up necessarily, but there's maybe because of that long distance and that mismatch in kind of love languages or whatever, there's a bit of frustration here. And I'm just getting this really kind of like, again, shout out to God, but he isn't at work, kind of, I need some relief, so I'm just venting. Such a cathartic song, but also it's a little bit of a downer.
I feel like the structure of the song,
Yeah.
it's like a very classic, it's a very classic structure.
Yep.
Right. And the composition there, like, very well done. What's this chord on the guitar? I mean, like,
Chords? Strumming?
just-
Power chords?
is that just it? Okay, cool.
Sure.
You know, like strong drum line,
Steady
and
drum
just the
line,
way
yeah.
that it interplays with like the vocals, etc. Right. And then it's like a very cathartic chord progression in the chorus. There is a bridge or a double chorus at the end where the first chorus and all instruments drop out, and then it's just vocals, and then they kick in again.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? That format, and it's such a good structure.
Yeah. It feels to me like both in lyrical content and in sonic content, we're getting a bit of variation here, but it's variation on a theme. It's not out of character.
Being able to hear the lyrics of the chorus more, I'm like, I don't know, like, is the singer singing to someone who they're in a relationship with? It just feels like it's one person to another, like they're in some kind of like relationship, like they know each other, maybe they're friends or something like that. Just like that friend who's trying to reach out, who's like, hey, come back to us, it's okay.
Yeah.
Was kind of the feeling that I got.
There is a line at the start which I wanted to call back to as well, which made it feel a bit more relationshipy to me, which was, I could be on my knees, giving it my best defense, praying for it not to end. If it went differently, we could be the finest friends, faithful in the realest sense. So maybe there was a bit of foul play.
Maybe.
But also, I could see your perspective. Like, it's a friendship situation.
Well, actually, I mean, like, what you just read there, and obviously my brain did not catch. My brain did not catch any of that. But now hearing that, that's what it is. Maybe it is two people who are like, they're in a relationship, they're starting to drift, and the singer, the speaker here is saying, "Come back to me." Like, even though we're drifting, I think we could be really good friends, but like maybe not as a relationship. So like, I don't want to lose you. Like, we could still be, you know, maybe that's what it's saying, and that's why maybe a lot of the rest of the lyrics feels very like intimate but platonic.
Yeah, it could be a way that the singer's trying to make sense of this complex relationshipy situation. And one way out, not out, but one way to process it is take all of those emotions, recontextualize them in a friendship setting, and this is the way that it makes sense to proceed. But You're shouting this to God and he isn't at work, so you're not getting an answer.
Well, even God rested. Also, the Bible says. I
Or
think.
something like
Trying
that.
to remember
It
back to,
depends
like,
on which
Sunday
perspective
school
of the
from-
Bible you're taking.
Yeah,
But
we're gonna put that, and I think it's
you can feel your
best-
head in the clouds, maybe.
It's head in the clouds, but I want to stay here on the dirt, and I think it's best left for now.
You're on a roll. Shit. All right. Next track. Best left.
Oh, oh.
Bit of a tremolo.
Some things are best left to rot. Had to find out. Are best left to rot.
I feel like that's another heavy one. So, okay, here's my perspective on this one, and then I'll let you give your first listen kind of interpretation. But we kind of have solidified the meaning of the previous song a little bit with this one. So, pulling it out from the wet ground, and we get some imagery of like picking at a scab when some things are best left to rot. So maybe the relationship's finished, maybe the friendship has severed, maybe communication has stopped, and there's such a yearning to go back and maybe find out why or rekindle something, when in reality it's like, just move on. Move on. Maybe it'll come back organically. Maybe it's not meant to be. Sometimes you're not meant to have all the answers.
That overall messaging came, I think, really clearly. I think my brain wasn't able to process a lot of the lyrics more this time because we're getting this like the tremolo,
Yeah.
which I learned last time.
Yeah.
On the guitar. I don't know if that's normal for a tremolo, but the stereo effect and how it was like
Yeah.
the sense of like revolving around us. And for me, that just so really engaged me almost on on a really visceral level. And it was creating this sense of like, not nausea, because I think it was maybe if the sound was very discordant, it would then maybe potentially even feel a bit nauseous. But it was
Yeah.
giving a lot of the sense of it was just a bit, it was off kilter and so forth.
It was shaky, but it was like kind of regular enough to make you not feel like you're falling off. You know, I feel that.
Yeah. And then of course, like, you know, the line, some things are best left to rot was really clear, I think, on I mean, it's imagery, but I think the message behind it is quite easy to understand there. I think what's interesting is, you know, especially if you look at it in context of Head in the Clouds, yeah, this could be like a continuation of that realization and almost like a response to what the previous song's singer was trying to say, and this is responding to that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, the darker tone in the music is definitely very apparent, and getting like literally heavier, and darker as well. A lot of more. I feel at the beginning some of the numbers were quite almost like on the folky indie side of things, and now we're getting, this is more on the rock side of it. It's getting a bit gritty.
Yeah, no, I totally got the vibe that I got for this song. And once again, we get a heavier topic, we get heavier imagery, but we still get an upbeat-ish kind of vibe from the Beths. We don't get a departure from what they're kind of about.
Yeah, it's not like Scream or something like that, where it's like literally angry.
And it's interesting you mentioned rock, because the genre that I get from the heavy tremolo, like stereo left right bouncing, and the high speed of the tremolo, so when you put the depth up on your tremolo, the dips in volume are more drastic, and when you turn up the speed, it's more frequent, and that's kind of the effect you're getting here. Another way to do this, fellow guitar nerds, is when you're on a guitar, strum a chord, grab your volume knob and twist it like crazy.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have a tremolo effect, you can do that.
Okay.
That for me is trademark like arena rock.
Yeah, I could. Yeah. I was just like, if I'm in, I did have a moment when I was imagining if I was in a live it was a live performance. You're in a venue and they have those massive speakers,
Yeah.
right? And you can just feel like all of the bass like reverberating through your bones, kind of thing. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go meta for a second.
Oh yeah.
And so this is track 7 out of 12. So we've now hit the second half, and I just wonder whether this is going to be a turning point.
Yeah.
And I'm just really curious to see whether the rest of the numbers now, are they also going to be a bit more heavier or grittier?
Yeah, that's so interesting because in this song and the last one, even though we're getting a little bit of clarity versus the previous song, I get a strong sense of uncertainty. So maybe this is where we kind of flip over to the other side and get a bit more kind of resolution or get a different perspective. Who knows?
Maybe it's just a change in the weather.
Softly spoken, assurances in long form. The winter knocked me out, frozen in an avalanche of doubt. Said to forget the heat of the sunlight on my skin. I feel it coming, but it's
Change in the chord progression, more like towards the end.
I really like the placement of this song.
Yeah.
So I think, Best Left had the very stereosonic tremolo going on, and between it sonically and lyrically being very like, sort of off balance, sort of like throwing you off, etc. And starting to get heavier. Musically, we needed a breath.
Yeah.
Right. And this was like, oh, okay, just to recover from that. Otherwise, it's too much. And I think this did it really well. I still feel like this is still trending towards the more like rocky vibes, right?
Yeah.
The stronger guitars, just with the drums, etc. I love that little like the pick up and turn. I don't know if that's the term for it. Like a pick up and turn in the chorus. It was like the drums would stop.
The winter knocked me out. The winter knocked me out.
And both like rhythmically
And
and then like with the drums, etc. That was really cool, and I felt like that was also like a very rock type of thing to do. You kick back in, and that was so good. And I love how like they did 2 of those.
Yep.
I really like how it's paired together, and the way that the ending having that sort of that lingering fading effect.
Yep.
I can imagine like the music video or something, and like it pan up into the sky, and you just like it's kind of
You see the change in the
hovering.
weather.
Yeah, exactly, literally and metaphorically. So
Yeah, and right at the end we had the chord progression of the chorus went, and then rather than resolving, it continued into another set of chords, which. And we can get to the lyrical content, I felt was very evocative of indecision, of not randomness, but surprise in what's up ahead and what's coming. Lyrically, what I got from this song is we go from a little bit of feeling sure about things that are best left to rot in the previous song to, you know what, I don't know what's right. Maybe it's the change in the weather. I'm not going to commit to a path. I'm not going to, dwell on even the sun on my head. Is this an illusion? Are the stairs never ending? Am I in delusion?
Yeah.
Those lyrics. It's very strong imagery. There was another lyric around swimming in a black hole. And I think that's also, if we're thinking about it as a response to the previous song, it's another interesting one where we're getting a bit of commentary on how sure Elizabeth Stokes was about herself in the last song. And that's kind of what I got from it.
Very well articulated. I have nothing more to add to that. Well, when you know, you know.
That is true.
And you do know.
That is true. Let's find out. Let's make ourselves know.
your beauty in the fore. A new unfolding story act, a new month I could keep going toward. Like tit for tat, that is you for me. But when you know, 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 you know to be
You know how I was saying before about the accents and it's same but different?
Yeah.
I think this is a good example where it's like the same.
You know.
You know.
It's
It's the start of a Kath and Kim bit waiting to happen. I love it. This gives me a little like country vibes.
Yeah, well, kind of. What I picked up on, and it's country adjacent, is like maybe early in career Taylor Swift, a little bit of like the country song that ends up in a rom-com.
Musically, it was much more acoustic feeling.
Yep.
Which to me felt very like, especially after the trending towards rock, the heavier stuff. And then also just with these, I feel like there's a lot more like resolution in like chords and things like that here.
Yeah.
And it kind of, for me, the word that was in my mind was like soothing,
Yeah.
healing, like this like, you know. And then when I was listening to the lyrics, I'm like, this kind of really plays into each other on that theme.
Yeah.
You know, having like a moment of like acceptance or realization.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like, uncertainty in the previous songs, and now we are here where we're at a more peaceful place.
It's interesting you mentioned realization. There's a very kind of self-aware line that I really like here. And we'll unpack in a second what I think this song is trying to show, like in terms of imagery. It takes all of my restraint, not climbing in your cranium to observe the way the furniture's arranged, scratching at the door. They're going to call security, so I can't creep around here anymore.
Oh,
so we know that
so good.
We know that the subject of this album so far, even if we're taking a through line, is a very analytical, very anxious person. And here, I'm not sure if it's, you know, we found a new love interest, a new crush, or we're even reapproaching the old crush. But we're taking a bit of a different, more self-aware kind of approach here. And we're seeing like, you know, I've tried to jump in your brain and figure out how it works so I can make sense of it, but maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Security's coming. I should get the hell out. I think that's such a solid line.
The poetry.
The poetry.
It's beautiful. And I feel like there's a bit of like a matter of fact thinking from the singer here, you know, and it's like, you know, accepting like this is what it is and it is what it is in a accepting, peaceful kind of way, perhaps.
Yeah, but you mentioned the same but different Australian Kiwi relationship there. We end the song with when you know, and it just kept going, which kind of, to me, listening to it, made me feel like, are we completely self-aware? Or are we kind of falling a little bit back into habits a bit and getting a little bit anxious again? And could be overthinking it, but that's kind of what I took away from the ending.
Maybe it is. Maybe for the singer, it was just a passing rain of thought.
So good. So good.
You're not a liar, but I can't believe you when I'm in this. I came like I was built to break.
We're outside.
How can you hold me?
I think we're retreading old ground here lyrically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, poetry is very cyclical, and to come back to a previous thought after going on your journey is very much a poetry thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was very well placed to kind of do that. I felt that especially the last two tracks, What Changed in the Weather and When You Know, there was the startings of like some realizations happening for the singer. And then here, now that we sort of like, these realizations are starting to precipitate more and solidify better. That we can sort of like look at what we were exploring earlier now through this new understanding, you know. I think how that familiarity was sort of achieved was, you know, we're back on this like upbeat rock style again.
Yeah, we're a bit more indie, a little bit less stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's back to like, oh, this, you know, and it's literally a sort of like it's familiar ground, you know, and I don't think, even though I've been saying like, oh, we're having realizations and things, and I talked about acceptance before, I think there's still quite a degree of like, it's not like all tension's been resolved, right? You know,
Yeah.
what is it like? I came, something built to break.
Yep.
I think the bridge. It's like, because obviously we've got this rain motif, like, you know,
Yeah.
dissolving in the rain. So there's still, it's not like everything's like super happy and they lived happily ever after.
I have some meta commentary on this that I will save until the end of the last track. It's more album
Okay.
context.
Cool.
But you're spot on. So we're retreading old ground. We're falling back into old patterns with a bit of a different lens. So you're a good actor. Must be a drag to know me when I'm down. So like, oh, you know, you're playing it up, but you don't really like me, right? But at the end of that verse, we get, you're not a liar. So there's a bit of a bit of realization there. I can't believe you when I'm in this state. So there's a bit of kind of like outside looking in. I know how I get, and I'm in that state right now.
And what this is very, weren't we exploring something very similar? Which track was it? It was talking about like, I don't get why you like me. Like, oh no, I don't get like how like we were talking about like, oh, I'm so weird and strange.
Yeah.
Why do you like me?
It might have been Head in the Clouds.
Something.
It might have been either that or I Want to Listen.
But yeah, I feel like this is exploring something very similar. But now, like before that was like, oh, I'm so kooky. Why do you even like me? And this time it's a little bit deeper of like, I'm a little bit troubled on the inside. I don't get why you accept me for who I am, but you do.
We're going into the next track.
Okay.
I told you that I was afraid.
I told you that I was afraid that I would have a bad trip, fall asleep and never wake. I don't know what I'm getting up for. I don't know what I'm getting up for. You tell me a lie. Will you cross your heart and hope to die? I don't know what I'm getting up for. I don't know what I'm getting up for.
Fuck, this is relatable.
Yeah, I was just thinking like with the earlier songs, and we were opening the album, and I'm like, oh, just the way that they're able to describe and articulate. I think so many people would be able to be like, oh, I know that feeling. Both on, you have that self-awareness about like, I've got stuff on my mind, I've got stuff going on. But then secondly, there was also that sort of conversation about, tell me everything's going to be okay. I know you're here for me, kind of thing. And it's like not lying to yourself, but like just sometimes we need a little bit of escapism. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a break from reality, and having that person to sort of help just really lean on is sometimes like all you need just to get through it. Like you're not delusional, you know stuff is going down.
Yeah.
You know that this year I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm getting up for.
Yeah.
You know, and that was, I think, a very powerfully vulnerable thing to talk about as well.
Yeah. And we're also, when we're talking about vulnerability and we're talking about reflection, we're getting a bit of a glimpse into early life and where this kind of habit might have started. There's a lyric, and I resonate with this completely. I told you I was afraid of stating my opinion in a clear and honest way. They told me in my youth it wasn't needed. Some thoughts are best deleted, and everyone agreed. We're seeing how something like that could, you know, seem pretty innocent at the time, but then as you kind of internalize that later in life, it crops up in other ways, and now you're looking at it through like a interpersonal lens. You're looking at it through the way kind of you process the world, and it's kind of snowballed. And it's, I think it's very vulnerable and very it's cathartic for me to get that kind of glimpse, because I super resonate with it as well. And you mentioned being kind of asking for that reassurance, and that making it okay in the moment. But then, you know, as humans, we're pretty hypocritical. We'll go back and like reanalyze that in a different way and complain about it being disingenuous and, oh, you weren't really, saying the truth, when we were asking for a bit of a white lie in the first place. I think some people could view this kind of as being a bit irritating, like, why are you so contradictory or whatever, but I think it's just very honest.
So much to relate to, and that you can think about for ages and ages, like into like small hours of the morning until like 2 a.m.,
I felt that one coming.
I know.
Do you feel it like you did back then? There's a song that never fails to make you cry. Ah, 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 ah.
Drums slowly building.
You don't try to leave, you just keep me company. Do you feel it like you did back then? 2 a.m. we were pounding the pavement.
What a beautiful way to finish.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know if that's how common it would be to like finish off an album with something that is so ballady
Yeah.
and something so still and reflective. I
Yeah.
feel like the last couple of albums that we've listened to, we've had something like this play a point around like the middle turning point
Yep.
of the album, when then there's been a shift in the journey. I feel like that was a very powerful way to finish.
Yeah.
And a lot of the messaging, like, obviously coming to, whatever the conversation between the two people have been, and through all of the troubles, they've come to a place where there is potential that things might be able to continue together. And obviously from the singer's perspective, it's very clear that they want things to be able to continue
Yeah.
and to go back, or to be able to bring back that closeness and dynamic that they had earlier in the relationship. At the same time, though, I think there's the uncertainty and anxiousness is also really is still portrayed here. We've gone through a journey, we've made a lot of realizations, we've had a really great discussion, but we're still the same person, and there's still, that lingering in there. And I felt that was really powerful coming through in the lyrics, where the singer is questioning the other person. They're like rhetorically asking because the person has, like, they're not there.
Yeah.
Sort of as you looking through the blinds as you're driving off at the beginning of the song, right?
Yeah.
But then I also, I think it was like about 80% of the way through the song, this, I don't know if it's a synth or a guitar, and it was this really high pitch, very ever so slightly warbling sound.
Yeah. I heard
And
that.
yeah, and at first I thought maybe this is a vocal track that they've done of like a very high pitched, not quite a scream, but not quite a wail. But then the more I listened to it, I'm like, no, I think this is an instrument, which removed a little bit of the intensities, because it wasn't literally someone wailing, but it did really invoke, at least for me, that sense in there. It completed, in some ways, it was like like a harmonic element in the chord, and it was sort of like the, whether it's a third or something like that sitting in the chord there. But then because of the instrument that they were using and the sound that it was making, it created this kind of like almost like an internal screaming kind of thing, very so quietly in the back of the mind.
It wasn't dissonant at all, but
it got actually towards the end. So just before the singer does the last refrain and the instrumentation all strips back, that wailing sound it was like one note for the longest time, and then just towards the end it actually did get quite discordant, and there was multiple of them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is such a great way to maybe portray like anxiousness, like that overwhelming feeling, and then like your brain's racing too much and goes yeah.
I felt that progression in emotion through the drums as well, because we started with such a basic drum, like a basic percussion, and as the song went on, it built, and to me it felt like a swell of emotions, like a raising of a heart rate as you think back and reminisce about these things that we're talking about through the track. It builds up more and more. You feel like you were there, you long for it, you ask those rhetorical questions. Do you feel it like you did back then? One thing that I noticed through the track lyrically was we're getting a lot of imagery of things that happened rather than through the filter of an anxious mind. So we're getting a lot of on the wharf, caught in a tailspin. We're getting a lot of, do you feel the ground beneath us start to move? I can hear the engine as you drove away through the blinds, the glow of the light fade. Mm-hmm. We're getting things that are very matter of fact, and I feel like we're almost flipping through a picture book of the experiences that these two went through without that bias of an anxious mind downplaying things and reframing events. And I think that's hitting the singer and me as the listener as well the hardest, when we strip back this POV and we're getting a glimpse of something that was actually quite magical and did impact, it sounds like, both parties quite heavily and touched them both.
I really like that we don't really get an answer.
Yeah.
I feel like when good stories that have, I mean, like, it's, how do you ever write an ending that is going to satisfy the audience? It's like, well, we've gone on a journey, we've made some realizations, we're still like the same person, we're still in this life, it's not magically changed 180 or anything like that. We're now equipped with like the things that we now know. You know, we can, it sort of gives, there's that open question about like, well, what's the future going to hold? And I think that's such a really wonderful way to end a narrative. Well, we've just heard Expert in a Dying Field by the Beths. Meditate, go.
Meditate. So here's the take. The take is, it's in the title and it's in the first song. Expert in a dying field. The field is love. And what happens is you start in an unknowing place. You get to know it. You feel like you're learning the ropes. You stumble, but you overcome. You feel like you're equipped to challenge it. And then the field is no longer relevant. The rules of the game have changed. And you're starting from ground zero again. You know, the relationship's taken a turn for the worse, and all the tactics you were employing before aren't relevant anymore. And when the album's transitioned through questioning to security, to questioning again, to insecurity, to letting go and being okay with letting go, and then being insecure again, to me, that's the dying field. Where every time we think we know it, we become experts, we've got to move on to a different field.
I was reflecting on, you know, sort of calling the album Expert in a Dying Field and what that might mean, and thinking that field and a dying field was like symbolism for you know, a relationship. I also felt as well an expert implies like, oh, this has happened to me before and I've done it so many times. But I think this actual album is just talking about like just one relationship, and I don't necessarily see like I don't know, I'm not looking necessarily to connect it, but like, has this happened before? Has it not happened before? Has the perspective of the singer, is it through the lens of someone who's like, oh, I've done this before, it's happened in a last relationship, or these realizations happening to them for the first time, in what sounds like or feels like the most significant relationship that they've ever had? Maybe this is the relationship kind of thing. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there's a connection to it. I feel quite content though, like not necessarily finding a connection between the two, but that's sort of where my brain went with it.
Thoughts on the Beths? New-ish band, recently in the spotlight. You know, this is their biggest album, and there's another one on the way. you think they're on the way to success?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the storytelling and the songwriting, both musically and lyrically, just really blew me away.
Yeah.
And I think it feels like there's also very much like a point of view. And I think when, what connects with people, and if a band's going to continue like having a greater following, it's like, people are going to resonate with things. And that's why they want to listen to this music, because they're like, oh, these are stories that I can relate to. These are themes that I can, when it's explored, it's like, oh yeah, I get it,
Yeah. And while not on the same landmass as us, shout out to a Kiwi band that's making it big.
Absolutely.
Same region of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's that. Till the next one.